emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome.
Hello, welcome to the second part of my GM ground type high grade model build, exclusively for emodels.co.uk. And in this video I'm going to be taking it all apart and doing some painting. So first, you can see here I am starting work on the inner frame sections of the model, and for this I'm going to be using a base coat of this Mr. Colour GX Oweno Black on a primer coat, which is just standard ultimate primer black, so for a lovely silky finish, or a lovely silky surface to work on. So for all of the light pieces, what I'm doing here is I've already applied a primer coat, and again that's Ultimate Modelling Primer White, and as a base coat I'm just using this Mr. Colour GX, so we have a nice bright base to work with. For these two metallic thrusters, I've just done a base coat in UMP Primer Black and that same Mr. Colour GX Oweno Black, and I'm just applying over the top some standard Mr. Colour Silver. And coming back to the inner frame parts, I'm just doing a kind of highlight shade using the Mr. Colour RLM 70 Black Green, just in the highlighted areas, and then just going over the whole thing to make sure we have a nice coverage. For the weapons, again it's just a standard UMP black primer on that Oweno Black, and I'm using a neutral grey, using the same kind of highlighting method, just to give it a bit of depth on all of the weapons. Moving on to the pre-shade now, and what I'm doing is mixing together a bit of black and a bit of red here, and I'm just going to do a kind of modulated shading along the bottom edge of all of the white parts, just to give it a sort of an illusion of shadow. And for the highlight, I'm mixing together a bit of white and some sandy brown, just to give the white a kind of a more of a sort of beige tint to it, to better match the original beige colour of the kit. And for the orange parts, I'm just using a bit of Mr. Colour Orange Yellow, and again just going over it in a kind of a highlight. So that's the bulk of the painting now completed. All that remains is to give everything some nice detail and to start the whole weathering process. So as you can see here, all I've done is just added a little bit of panel lining just to bring out those details, and just very lightly gone over it with some dry brushing with some good old silver paint, just to give it a nice brushed metal effect. And the next stage of this is just to start weathering. So let's take a look at the shield. Here is one part of the kit that I've just assembled, just to see how all of the colours look together. And you can see here it's quite an interesting shade of sort of grey-green on the back there. And the pre-shade has come out quite nicely, and there's a nice sort of a definite change in tone as it goes down towards the bottom of the kit, hopefully to give it a nice sort of shaded effect. And I've just gone over it and done some very light panel lining here, just so we can see the details in the front of the shield, and done the same thing on the back here. So next I'm going to get some brown paint. I'm going to start painting in some paint flaking and a bit of damage here around the edges. I might use a sponge or two just to kind of give it a nice kind of paint flaking off or rusting effect. But I want to concentrate in areas where you would expect it to start to show a bit of wear and tear. So I'm going to do that around the kind of edges here, where this pipe meets the top of the shield. Probably here, obviously a lot around the bottom here, because when this shield is in use, if I can demonstrate this interesting little gimmick here, it stands up like so. So there's obviously going to be a lot of wear and tear on these bottom two prongs here, where it meets the ground. So let's get that started on that. So for this weathering process, I'm going to be using some MIG acrylic colour chipping, which is a lovely shade of brown. And what you can see here is I've got a really cheap sponge brush that you'll pick up from a craft store. And I'm getting lots on the end of the brush here. and then removing as much excess as I possibly can. The good thing about this is it gives me a nice straight edge to work with, as well as like a nice sharp corner, so I can get right into the details. And the effect is it leaves quite a nice kind of rusty finish. Quite nicely to scale too. It's not too large and it's not too small. I think it's about right for this kind of scale model. So once I've applied this effect to all the pieces that I need to, next thing to do is to kind of block out just some areas where there's particularly more wear than others. And with that I'll just get a brush and brush over some areas to kind of block it out a bit. And then I'll get a bit of silver paint and just kind of put it into those areas here and there. Just to make it look as though there's some particular areas that I've scraped away so much that it's left a bit of bare metal behind. You can see here's a completed and fully assembled leg. So the next thing to do is I want to just put a tiny amount of pigment on there. So I have here Tamiya Weathering Set C, and I'm going to be using the sand part of this. And what I want to do is just add a very light application of a bit of dust around the feet, around the legs, and around the shield area, just to kind of give an illusion that it's built up a little bit of dirt over time. And in some areas, especially around the joints, I would like a little bit of leakage. So what I'm using here is a bit of MIG engine grime, which is of course a sort of enamel oil based paint. And all I'm doing is kind of pooling it up in the top areas and then dragging it down with a nice sort of dry-ish brush just to see how it looks, and streaking some little pieces here and there just to make it look as though it's got a bit of kind of stained rain damage. Okay, so here is the model now completely reassembled after its withering treatment. And I've just gone ahead and sealed everything in with a nice sort of acrylic aqua gloss, just to make sure everything looks nice and consistent. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get it in the photo booth, and I'm going to take some really nice close-up pictures so you can see this a little bit clearer. Overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Just some very simple weathering on this one, just some very simple sort of modulated shading done here and there. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the shading came out a little bit weird, but it's okay. I think it adds quite a nice kind of a contrasty effect on the armor itself. But it's nice to experiment with colors here and there whenever you can. So yeah, this is about it, and that's the end of this work in progress series, exclusively for emodels.co.uk. Thank you all for watching, and of course you can get everything that you've seen in this video, all the paints, all the stuff, including this kit, from emodels.co.uk, so do check them out. Oh, here's the weapon here that I need to add later on. I might do just include this in the posing pictures later on. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye bye.